You're watching Fugitive Red-Eye, and this is another exciting episode of Flashbacks, the series where I talk about things that are nostalgic in one way or another. The topic of today's episode will be Ape Escape, the PlayStation exclusive series which hasn't seen a game in quite some time. The whole premise of the game is to go around capturing monkeys with a net that will teleport them to some sort of holding cell or something. The reason behind it is because monkeys put on these helmets that make them want to take over the world or something. Has a pretty odd plot, but it was nonetheless one of the greatest games on the PS1. I never actually played the full game of Ape Escape 1, actually. I only ever played the demo on PlayStation Underground. Same thing for Ape Escape 2. So I really only ever played the first couple levels because I only played the demo, but nonetheless, they were still fun. Ape Escape 3 is when I really got into it because we actually had Ape Escape 3. And I played Ape Escape 3 all the time, and I actually like 100% of the game. I mean, granted, I played as the girl character because, I don't know, I did that at the time. It was actually much easier that way because the girl character is actually an easier difficulty. On top of that, I don't know, it just... The game itself was pretty good in comparison to the other two because you could transform to help you capture the monkeys, and there were boss battles all over the place, and it was pretty interesting and very memorable. I played it all the time. One of my favorite things was something they called Simian Cinema, where you could use the monkeys you captured in order to make movies on the game. We would mess around with that all the time, and we made a bunch of funny stuff. Like, we took one of the templates, which was one with someone with a towel at a sauna, rubbing it back and forth between their legs. We replaced that with a knight in armor, so it was stabbing himself in the groin. It was pretty funny. The game itself consisted of 6 main bosses. Well, 7 technically, because you had to fight the final boss a second time after you had beat him the first time. See, once you beat Spectre, that's the main boss for the first time, you'd actually have to go back and capture the rest of the monkeys and then fight him again. The game itself was incredibly fun, and apparently there were some anime spin-offs and a cartoon spin-off, but I've never seen any of those. I bet they were terrible. There's also Ape Escape Million Monkeys, which is a game that only was released in Japan that hopefully I'll get it at some point because I want to try it out. There was also Ape Escape Academy on the PSP, which was a similar to a Mario Parties type game where you just play mini-games in order to level up. Not as good as Ape Escape 3. Honestly, Ape Escape 3 is probably the crown jewel, but Million Monkeys is the only one where you can actually play as Spectre, who's the main villain, so I'm really looking forward to that if I can get my hands on it. And if I do, I'll make sure that I make a video about it as well, but on top of that, Ape Escape was just filled with all sorts of crazy stuff. There were fantasy levels, sci-fi levels, western levels, old kung fu movie levels. Like, there was even a Metal Gear Solid minigame where you could play through, they called it Metal Gear Solid, but you played as a monkey version of Snake through basically a Metal Gear Solid parody. It was pretty fun. But yeah, Ape Escape 2 I never really even played that much, honestly. Like, Ape Escape 1, I know I said I just played the demo, but I played it a lot more than I did Ape Escape 2, honestly. And, I've heard Ape Escape 2 is actually the best, although I've never really gotten that into it, so I wouldn't know. I'd say, from my experience, Ape Escape 3 is the best, but that's because it's really the only one I played. I think that the Japanese name for the series is much more entertaining, too. In Japan, it's called Saru Getchu. I don't know, I just always thought that was funny. But, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Ape Escape. So yeah, this is Fugitive Red-Eye, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Tune in again next time if you did.